Good morning, everybody. We are live again. It is Friday. Happy Friday. It is Experts Interview Day. I'm Elisa James, your co-host today, and we are streaming live on Facebook and also in YouTube on the Find Your Voice Aspiring Speakers Club in Facebook, and on YouTube at my channel, The Voice of Confidence TV. Now, today we have an extra special guest. We are specially in alignment, Paul and I. He is the English language detective. Now, the reason that we're in alignment is because we both serve people that come from other countries and speak other languages before English. The way that I support people is in public speaking skills on camera, on podcast, and on stage, and helping them finesse their presentations, regardless of how good or bad their English is. Now, Paul goes the extra mile in the other way. He helps people really understand the language at a much deeper level. So together, we would be an amazing team doing an online course or something like that. So if you are an ESL person today, if you are a student and learning English as a second language, perhaps to get a better job or to get a global position somewhere, then you're in the right place. Because today we're going to unpack the weirdness that is English. You know, I do this with my students all the time. And when I'm teaching them something in public speaking, a particular way of speaking, for instance, there'll be a rule that I know inherently, but I have no idea why I know that, purely because I'm native English speaker. So we're going to look at the intricacies of the language today. So my guest today is Paul Duke. He's a Canadian English language instructor, tutor, coach, and detective. Before he actually studied or actually became an English language instructor or English as a second language instructor, he was actually a private investigator, which is super interesting, and a security specialist. And he brings that skill and detailed analysis and investigation into his work as he helps people. Now, his channel on YouTube is called Hard Boiled English, and you've got to check out his channel. I'll give that to you at the end of the interview today because it's so interesting. It's nothing like my channel at all. It is so super interesting. It's set up like a detective series. I absolutely love it. So please welcome to the show today, Paul Duke. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Elisa. Lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's absolutely wonderful to chat to you. We've been meaning to do this for a very long time. We've already got some people showing up and saying hello, which is great. We are not sure with StreamYard. Sometimes when you don't allow StreamYard to see who you are, it won't show your name. So if you allow StreamYard in the comments to show your name, guys, if you're in Facebook or YouTube, just allow StreamYard to see that. And then we'll be able to pop your name on the screen and we'll be able to interact with you as well. Oh, Chris is here. Okay, great. Chris, hello from Belgium. It's lovely to see you here and welcome to the show. Now, remember, guys, this is streaming live. Anything can happen and does on live video. If you've got any questions or comments while we are live, please check your platform. We are inside Find Your Voice Aspiring Speakers Club and we are inside YouTube. So either of those platforms, you can type below and we will actually see your comments and can ask your questions. So today it's all about English weirdness. Now, how did you get started in all this? What drew you to English teaching and giving up detective work? I mean, that's a super interesting switch.
Yeah, it's an unusual switch, that's for sure. Well, I suppose earlier in my life, when I was in the security business, I never thought of being a teacher. I hadn't thought about being a teacher as a child or a teenager. It never occurred to me. But after about 20 years in that security business, I was tired of it and looking for something else because it never really fit me. There was something missing. I enjoyed some aspects of it, but there was other things that were just sort of missing from my life, but I didn't know what. Perchance, one night while dining out alone, I met a young lady who was an international student in my city, Vancouver, and she was with her friends, and they were in Vancouver studying English. Well, long story short, we began dating, and I began helping her with her English homework. And she was kind of impressed at how I could explain things to her, and I And she said, well, how do you know that? And I said, I'm not really sure. Other than the fact that as a child, I was good at English. It was my strongest class. I was a voracious reader as a child, pretty much an introvert. So I spent a lot of time alone in my room, dreaming, reading, even wrote. So language was always there. And it made me think, you know, all the time while I was in the investigation and security business, I was always still reading. And I wasn't reading about, you know, detective stories. I was reading widely. And so we started thinking about this. And she said, you should be an English teacher, because that way, whether we live in Canada or another country, you could do that work. And it really started making me think. And I decided to go for it. And so at the age of 40, I went to university and began my studies and really focused on language in depth. And that's how I got started. And once I became a teacher, I realized there was a lot of overlap between being an investigator and being a teacher, at least the way I found myself teaching.
Yeah.
But I owe it all to my current wife.
The girlfriend that became your wife. It's a love story. I love it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Guys, the thing that I got from this is English can bring you together with your loved one and
Truly.
your, yes, you never know. But the second thing is also, it's never too late to reinvent yourself. It's
Absolutely.
never too late to study. I did the same thing, Paul. I traveled around the world for 35 years as an entertainer. And then at 35 years old, thought maybe I should have a plan B just in case I ever want to stop. You know, at 35 years old, I went to my first university degree and I loved learning so much. I did 3 degrees in a row. So yeah, welcome to the club, guys. This is the time. After 40 is the time to pivot and change your life into something that you really, really, really want to do. So yeah, thank you.
I agree. I think life's not a straight line. It's a series of twists and curves. And if you're open to it, I actually found when I became a teacher, I found my way back to who I was in a much stronger way than when I was working as an investigator.
I feel exactly the same way as a coach. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. I think that we sometimes forget what inspired us to start something in the first place. And then we can go off track, you know, or follow too many people's advice, you know, and
that's a problem.
Not listening to ourselves. Yeah. So thank you for being here. This is so awesome. As you can tell with all of my, my interviews, guys, it's not only about the topic, it's always about holistic approach to everything, because let's face it, life and business is all intertwined. Everything needs to be balanced in some way. And if we're not happy in what we do, we need to shift. So that's always the bottom line for me. I'm looking for happiness and fulfillment for all of my clients and myself. So number 2, great question. Why did you come up with the name Hard Boiled English, and what's so unique about your approach? It's super interesting.
Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit tongue in cheek, a little bit playful. The term hard boiled really has nothing to do with eggs. It's related to a style of cinema. The black and white cinema of the 1940s, the old detective stories. And these detectives were, you know, walking the streets of New York and Los Angeles, and they were tough. They were hard-boiled characters. They were tough and hardy and dependable. So when I became a teacher, the hard-boiled came a bit later once I started making videos. But I did find once I started teaching, I did find that I was a little different than other teachers in the fact that my background made me a little different. And I found that a lot of teachers of English as a second language, and a lot of students, by the way, sort of believed that there was a magic formula to learning English, that there were some quick and easy techniques, and all you had to do was sign up for this course or take this course or do this. And I didn't believe it. I believed that learning a language was really, really challenging. And if you want to do it, you're going to have to be prepared to do the hard work, which includes study and practice. And also this, and it points to what you were saying about holistic. The hard-boiled teaching is really holistic. It means not just studying, but doing the scary thing, sort of walking the dark streets, so to speak, meaning approach strangers and talk to them. Be terrified of facing your fears. Yeah. And as a teacher, I support my students through that process. Like this is going to be a terrifying project, or this is going to be a terrifying experience using your English, but I'm there with you. But you've got to overcome it. You've got to face it. Because in a way, that's what children do, right? They just throw themselves into communicating, and they're fearless. So to really develop English, especially as an adult, when you're worried about all these things, including how I look, you've got to overcome those fears. So I'm not a proponent of saying that learning English, there's a magic formula or there's a quick and easy upload. It's hard work. And if you do the hard work, you improve. And if you face the fears and go for it and really attack the fears and do the hard work, you develop, you improve. So that's really what the hard-boiled approach is.
Yeah, look, that's so true across the board, isn't it? Because with me, I teach public speaking, and this is a really great synergy. Anything is a skill, and everything that you learn, everything that we learn is always hard before it's easy. Everything.
That's right.
When I moved to Holland years ago, I didn't even know where Holland was. Very embarrassing. I didn't even, silly me. I mean, I had $4,000 in my bank account. I had two suitcases and a child in tow. And I moved to Holland with a then boyfriend, right? Having no idea what I was going to do apart from sing, because I had a record deal at the time with no real promise of, money. But anyway, I had to get over myself and show up and start learning Dutch, because I was actually living in a country. The language was completely foreign to me, and it was embarrassing. I felt like an idiot, just trying to say, goeiemorgen, hoe gaat het? Trying to get the right sounds and with the right intonation of sound for the language. It was so hard. And then as soon as I would blurt something out very awkwardly, then they'd switch to English. And eventually I realized I'm never going to learn it unless I really say in Dutch, no, I have to practice my Dutch. Now, my child, who was 8 when we moved, learned 6 months or less. He had perfect Dutch because you're right, he had no fear. Whereas I was second guessing myself and using all those excuses of how stupid I would sound. So this is what I do with all of my students too. This is so good for people to know that there is a fear. You will feel a lack of confidence. It's a perfectly natural thing to feel when you're learning a new skill. But if you keep at it and keep focused, it will improve.
Yeah. I also think that part of my approach is that I work with a lot of adult learners, and adult learners have complex adult thinking in their language, but their English may be at a lower level. There's a disconnect. And what I find is that they want to know why. Adults want to know why. It's a natural result of complex thinking. And I have experienced a lot of English teachers who avoid answering those kind of questions, either because they don't know or they don't want to bother with it because they don't feel it's necessary. But for adult learners, it is necessary to know why, so that later you can make language choices. And I believe that there is an answer to that question somewhere. And I'm not afraid to explore it rather than being dishonest. So the hard-boiled approach to learning is also, let's be honest about it, there's an answer there. There must be a reason we say this, not this. So it's about exploring too.
Yeah, look, exactly. And being open enough to be able to play and do that. Rocky has joined us and says, what a powerful statement. It's never too late to reinvent yourself. Absolutely. Yes. And this means that anyone who's learning English as a second language, this is your opportunity. It doesn't matter if you're 40 or 50 or 60, it does not matter. You can improve your life by learning a new language and opening all those amazing possibilities in the world up because of that new language. That happened to me, and that can happen to you too. Yeah. And Chris has joined us also and says, goeiemorgen, hoe gaat het? Sounded perfect. That's about it for me. I used to speak pretty good Dutch, but it's a bit slordig now. It's a bit messy. Let's jump right into question number 3. What are the challenges that you usually face with your students, and how do you help them overcome those? What are the most common ones that you face, or your students face?
Yeah, I think we might have touched on this a little bit already. The most common challenge is fear, self-consciousness, because adults are worried about things that children learners aren't. For example, oh, if I say a mistake, that person won't think I'm cool or handsome or cute. We're self-conscious about how others view us. And if we are motivated to learn a language for business or something, we have a tendency to perfectionism where we won't try it until we think we have it perfect, which is paradoxical. It's in the wrong sequence. You've got to try it in order to develop it.
Yep.
So that's a common challenge. And I encourage them by just being hard-boiled with them by saying, you've got to do it. I try to push them towards the scary thing with support, and creating an environment where, there's no judgment. There's no bad answer. So I want my students to try things, and if the answer is not 100% accurate, it's still a good answer because they tried.
Yeah.
So I think self-consciousness is the largest challenge. In terms of the language, every different language group, whether the learner is from Japan or Brazil or Russia, each language brings its own characteristics and interferes with their English learning. So each language student has a specific kind of challenge linguistically. Maybe it's a sentence structure that's different. Maybe it's, for the Japanese learner, they don't use articles in their language. So learning how to use a and the in English, it's an enormous challenge.
Oh, wow.
There's sort of personal challenges they face, the self-consciousness, and there's the specific linguistic challenge unique to each group of learner. But I think those are the ones, I think.
Yeah, look, I find that too with Indian and Asian clients. There's a big difference in the way that they structure a sentence, for instance.
Yep.
And I'm not talking about the actual grammatical structure. I'm talking about the flow. The flow is very different in English. So there's
the way they assemble the idea.
Yeah, it can be very choppy and very broken up, and it's a very different type of flow. So that sound, as well as getting the construction right, is quite tricky for a lot of people. So we both have a YouTube channel, guys, and I'll show you where to find Paul in a moment. But what instigated you to start doing videos on YouTube around about this? Like, what was your first? Oh, I've got to start a YouTube channel and start videos. What was that for you?
Yeah, I think this is a good question. Speaking of reinvent yourself, not only did I move from being a private investigator to being an English teacher, I moved from being an English teacher to an on-camera video presenter, which never was something I wanted to do. However, as a child, as I said, I was very introverted and I read a lot. I also adored movies, and I wanted to make movies as a child. In fact, as a child, I did make movies. I made Super 8 films, animated films. That was my real dream as a kid. And as I got older, I thought it wouldn't happen, so I gave it up. As a teenager, I tried to do cool things and got involved with sports. I thought investigation would be a cool profession. So when I came back to teaching, after some time, I thought I would try to get into private tutoring online. I sort of saw that as maybe my retirement profession. So I thought, I need a video that I can advertise, sort of a sample lesson, because when students are looking for a private tutor, there's a lot of text ads, but you don't know who you're getting. And a lot of those advertisements can be creepy. So I thought I'd make a video. So I approached one of my students who I knew was an aspiring cinematographer and filmmaker, and he had a camera. I said, hey, dude, would you stay after school one day and shoot me doing a lesson? And he said, sure. So we did that, and it was so much fun, and so many ideas started popping up. It very quickly evolved from let's make a sample video to promote my tutoring to let's make educational videos with a bit of cinema. And we started brainstorming. The young man's name is Uriel Lopez, and he became my chief collaborator. And we started creating an idea of a series, a language investigation series that would incorporate a little drama. So we'd have language context of communication going wrong. And then the person who suffered the communication problem would run to Teacher Paul for an explanation, and I would do that. And we would use graphics, we would use animation, and then the young student would understand the language problem they had, go back to the story and resolve the problem for a happy ending. This became English weirdness.
I love
And,
that. It's like film noir. You'd never even understand what the video is until you see this, guys. You've got to see this type of video. It's just incredible. He makes it like a movie. It's just amazing. How long does it take you to make a video? It looks like
a long time.
Yeah.
Each episode is half an hour long. So usually we would shoot it over the course of a weekend. Shout out to my school that I work at, because they let us use the facilities there on the weekend. But we worked like 3 15, 16-hour days. And by the way, when I say work, these productions are made entirely with my students and I, all volunteers. And so the shooting would take about 3 days, and then the editing that I would do would take sometimes months, because I'd have to do it in my spare time and have to create all the animations, all the soundtrack. Wow. You know, after the shooting, it's really a 1 or 2 man show, so it does take me some time. Yeah. But it's worth it. In the end, we've got a video, an episode of a video series, which I believe, in all modesty, is unlike anything else on YouTube. There's a lot of English instruction videos with a teacher at a whiteboard, but this is something very different. And
really,
I'm very proud of all the students involved who gave me their time and effort, and hopefully also learned something while we made these videos, because they're all from different countries. None of them, except my main collaborator, Uriel, none of them have any experience making videos or film. So they're learning how to make videos and communicating with each other in the production. But the initial impetus of making videos was to promote my tutoring. And now it's become real passion. I'd like to continue.
Yeah. I think it's amazing, because you've created that spark from the lifelong dream. And the same with me. When I was a kid, I wanted to be in film. You know, I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be all that. And yes, I did that to a certain degree, but it was always that spark inside that is still there.
It doesn't fade.
It doesn't fade. It really doesn't fade. And I wonder how many people squish that desire down.
Oh, yeah. I did for years.
Yeah, and I hear that all the time. You know, I might get a student at 60 saying to me, I've always wanted to sing, you know, and it's such a shame that they don't do that they don't follow that desire, that spark, that seed of pure potential that's available to so many people. And just because you're not doing it, you know, full time, anything that you love doesn't mean that you can't do it. You can always start something as a side gig just for fun, because you love it. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's such a great idea for everybody.
As an aspiring filmmaker, as a child growing up in Canada, you know, I was sort of encouraged to believe that only happened in Hollywood to special people. So I gave it up. But okay, so maybe I'm not making Hollywood blockbusters, but I'm still feeling the same thrill of creation, making my little video productions.
Absolutely.
That really redeems my life in a way, gives my life a lot of meaning and passion.
Yeah, look, absolutely. So Rocco has said, where can I watch them? You will absolutely love them. They're right here if you jump over to YouTube, the English language detective, Teacher Paul. So I'll show that again in a moment, but we're going to do just one more video. You know, this pandemic has been so good actually to a lot of people, and they've been able to pivot and really change their lives. I know that it's been very hard for a lot of people too, but how has the ESL industry really been affected by this, and how have your business been affected by the pandemic?
Yeah, it's a great question. To be honest with you, the ESL education industry in Canada is enormous. It's a huge part of the economy, especially in Vancouver and Toronto, because international students will come to Canada for a study abroad experience. That entire industry basically collapsed due to the pandemic because the borders are closed. Now, Vancouver, Canada is not an island the way Australia is, but we turned it into an island by sealing the international borders.
Yeah.
Rightly so, I believe. But it meant the international schools had no students.
Right.
However, I took it as an opportunity to do what I had been thinking about doing previously anyways, which was to move my teaching online. So I was already familiar with working with Zoom, for example. I started making my videos. I thought I'm just going to throw myself into that and make use of the isolation.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I've kept busy with my private students, working on the English Weirdness series, the YouTube channel Hardboiled English, and also I started doing a weekly live class, a live streaming class where people can watch me answer their questions live right on this whiteboard. So all of these projects have kept me very busy. I haven't suffered too much income change. So I can't really say that I've suffered too much, and I've maintained my health, so I'm grateful for that. But the industry itself, it's been devastated.
Yeah. Well, but I can see that what you're doing and what I'm doing too is almost recession proof, isn't it? Because when people want to change their lives and they really need to learn good skills, good English skills, good speaking skills, good on-camera presentation skills, all of those skills are very, very useful in today's market around the world, because let's face it, all the borders really, even though they're closed, all the borders for us globally on internet are absolutely open.
Yeah,
more
the internet's
than
wide
ever
open.
before. Wide open. I can say now for the first time in my life that I have more students in other countries than I do from Australia. Whereas when I first came back to Australia after being 20 years overseas, I came back and only taught people in my home or in my studio, or they would come to my house. And of course, that sort of business model is very limiting. But when you open out your business model and make it global, it just makes such a difference. So for instance, my staff, they're all overseas, and it doesn't matter where they are. It doesn't matter where you are when you work. If you have good language skills, if you have good public speaking skills and a camera, you can really, the world is your oyster.
Absolutely.
You can work anywhere for anyone, anytime.
That's right.
Which is a brilliant coup these days. Fantastic to have.
And I felt too that, if I were going to be isolated at home due to the pandemic, so are my students. It was just a matter of connecting them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like you said, everyone's suffering the same problem. It's not just Canada or Australia. So we're all in the same boat together. Let's make use of it. And the internet allows us to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us live here today. If you've got any more questions for Paul before we finish up, remember you can just pop that directly underneath the video. Let's check the last comments before we head off. Now we've got, I'm not sure what this means, Clive. Way man. Is that something to do with Canadian speak?
I can't say I'm familiar with that. It's interesting.
I love it. And the same as Morocco, I think she meant the borders. Yeah, it's in the borders have really saved us to a large extent. Really saved us. So if you guys want to connect with Paul, there are two ways that you can do that. If you're inside Facebook watching this live right now, you can jump into the Find Your Voice Aspiring Speakers Club, where you'll see this replay and you'll be able to see all the comments underneath there. So if you have a question for Paul, just put that directly underneath the comments in the Find Your Voice Aspiring Speakers Club. And the same in YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube on the Voice of Confidence TV, you'll also be able to pop your comments directly underneath the channel. Clive has said Gordy. I'm not quite sure what that means.
By the way, Lisa,
give us more information. We have no idea. Yes.
And by the way, my channel's name is actually Teacher Paul's Hardboiled English. If they're looking for it on YouTube.
Let me put that. Teacher Paul.
Hardboiled English.
Hardboiled English. Sorry, I did that wrong.
By the way, I must also say that I loved your video about the sexy voice, and I'm looking forward to learning how to make my voice sexier next week. Very interesting.
Oh, absolutely. You will love the boys one too. The boys is just as good as the girls. I've just always been fascinated by voices, of course, and why people like some voices and they hate others.
That's right.
Why is that?
Very interesting.
We're really looking at it from a scientific perspective, like a detective. I go into all the science of that and pull it apart and say, okay, it's got to do with, pitch and airflow and timbre, and I actually go into it and tell people what it is. We got one. I love it.
I've learned a lot from you because I was not prepared to be a public speaker or a presenter on camera. So I've learned a lot about using my voice better from you. So I appreciate that.
Oh, Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you're very, very welcome. That's what I'm here for. So guys, if you want to connect with Paul, go to YouTube and check out his channel. It's an awesome channel. You will be there for hours looking at his videos. They're just amazing.
I hope so.
Look, very, very different, very unique. He's got such a unique approach and really, really good teacher. You'll be in good hands if you're looking for an English expert. I am absolutely no expert. I can teach you public speaking, but English, yeah, go to him. This way. This way.
They should learn from both of us and put the pieces together.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It is a puzzle. It is absolutely a puzzle. The English language detective. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Rockio says, thank you, Elisa and Paul. She loved that interview. So thank you.
Thank you.
Live. It's been such a pleasure having you today on the show. And I look forward to doing a collab soon when we both have the time.
Indeed. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
You're very welcome. All right, guys, have an awesome Friday, and I'll see you next week for another live cast. See you then. Bye.